I go to the quiet room. I turn it. I go to the corner.
Okay, all right, we are live. Hello, front page, and everyone else is here. Hello, welcome on in. Welcome.
Hey.
Welcome to day 3 of Stream Queens Con. I wish I had something more insightful to say than that, but my brain is fried right now. All right, I suppose I'll start with the introduction. I was supposed to tell everyone what order I was going to do this, but all I know is I'm going to go last. Brain is just... All right, this is Pixel Queens. This is how we, as members of the drag community, strive to keep retro gaming alive on Twitch and just in general. I'd like to take a moment to thank, of course, the moderators for putting all this thing together and the production crew. Thank you very much, Opa, Dola, Chad, all the moderators in general. We all thank you very much for the hard work you're doing over there. I'd like to take an opportunity to allow our guests here on this panel to introduce themselves. 60, let's start with you.
Hello, everyone. If you don't know me, I go by 60BB. I go by Rudy6 as a musician, but in drag, I go by I'm a Betty Black because everywhere I go, people say I'm Betty Black, and they're right. You can find me streaming at twitch.tv/60BB.
All right, Chalora, who are you?
Hello, this is Chalora. You can find me on twitch.tv/Chalora, where I play a ridiculous assortment of games you've probably never heard of. I recently just got a little doohickey we'll talk about later, so I can play Chibi Robo, so we'll be playing that soon. And yeah.
All right, Nemi, hit me.
Hello, everybody. I am Nemesis Network. I run the network on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, and Sundays. We play lots of retro games from like the early 2000s eras, lots of like fun stuff. I really can't keep my hands occupied. I love grabbing all the games that I can from the early 2000s on GameCube. Super cute. But yeah, that's me.
Lucy, hit me.
All right. Since we're on the front page, I'm going to censor my name. I'm Lucy McGee. I'm the hostess of this channel, Shady Gaming, which is me and a bunch of other queens, but mostly me because, you know, quarantine, pandemic, and all that stuff. We play whatever the hell I want to play. Usually it's horror games. We play a lot of retro games, especially retro games that are modded all to hell, especially a lot of retro randomizers. You ain't needed Xanax till you played it a Legend of Zelda OG randomizer on Maximum.
And I guess to round this out, I suppose I can introduce myself. For those of you who may not know me, I am QueenPiB, Patricia Ingeborgat. You may also call me Trish. I'm a retro variety drag queen streamer, a member of Team Stream Queens, and on my channel, your time here is well wasted. I'd also like to take an opportunity to issue a little shout out as well to Lady Mega Danger, who was supposed to be a part of this panel, but regrettably was not able to get out of a work obligation. We're sad that we don't get to see her here, but I want to make sure that we get a shout out for them and that they hopefully are on that dynamic thing over there too. So when you're tickling that follow button for all of us, make sure you're tickling it for Lady Mega Danger as well. Wherever it is on the screen, it's in there somewhere.
Oh, Lady Mega Danger, yeah.
Over there somewhere. That direction. You know the place. All right, where do we want to start this thing? I suppose I could check and see what my notes say. We've done the introductions. I guess we could talk about why on earth. So there's so many games out there. I've heard there's like at least 3 games out there. Maybe more. I don't know. There's a lot of popular games on this platform. Maybe you've heard of 1 or 2. But what we do on our channels is we tend to just, you know, we do the older stuff. Everyone's playing with their fork knives and their cyberbugs and so on and so forth. Why do we play the older stuff? What is it that draws us to remember the games of yesteryear for a new audience? Let's see. I'm going to go eeny, meeny. Does anyone want to take the floor first just to explain why your channel is one of the premier destinations for retro gaming? Nemi, the floor is yours.
I could. I like retro gaming because of the nostalgia it brings me. I like living in the past because it was such a good era of video games. And there's the era of early video games, retro gaming, not only 2000s, but previously in the earlier years. Stuff really doesn't hold up to what it originally was. Like, everything's trying to be like it used to be, and they really can't remake it what the original was. And that's the same thing for a lot of things. Like, the sequel's never good as the original, etc., etc. But I love the nostalgia. I love everything about that. And they're just fun games. I mean, come on.
Can't argue with that. Chalora, hit me.
I am pretty much the same way, like nostalgia for sure. A lot of times I find like newer games, they're just not to this, like they're just not up to par with older games. Like you can play an older game and it's just a million times better. The writing is better. Even sometimes the graphics is better, which is like crazy to me. Bananas. The music is better. Like I feel like with this crunch, I think it's called crunch culture, where they like basically force people under these ridiculous restrictive schedules.
Yes.
Really makes games terrible, and it's just awful. So
Yeah.
Agree.
Betty, what do you got for me? What is it about the games of yore that just does it for you?
You know, I didn't even like revisit retro games. Like I just started streaming this year, but I didn't even really revisit retro games until I started just feeling very uninspired or dissatisfied by the newer games coming out. Like I would play a few just to sort of hop into the fun of it. And it wasn't until I was literally like just digging through old stuff and finding old things that I used to play that I was, and even just like seeing streams like Nemesis's stream, PiB streams, that I started to really think about how I can incorporate retro in. And there was just something like, it seems like there was something palpable in the writing and the character development and the storylines in 90s and games. And I just love it. So we're going to be getting into it.
Ooh.
Hell yeah.
Rock Queen.
The palette, the PlayStation palette from the Sony collection.
Ooh. Do you need Dust Gray? We got you.
Dreamcast Mini win.
Ooh. All right, Lucy, hit me. What is it about the retro that does it for you?
All right, I'm about to expose myself. I think I'm probably the oldest person on this panel who actually lived through the retro area because I'm about to turn 36 damn years old in 3 months. And I remember the console wars, and it was like, accessibility is the reason I retro game, because growing up, I couldn't afford to have every console, especially these the like newer adulter consoles. Like I was there, I saw live a demo floor model at Dillard's, the Philips CDI, playing games in front of my face, and it was like $800. I'm like, ain't no way I'm gonna play that. Ain't no way my family's gonna let me afford that. And accessibility, like. When I was a kid, my parents were not going to let me play one of the first games with the sex scene, Phantasmagoria. So it's a way of going back and being able to play the games I couldn't afford or were forbidden to play back when I was a kid, especially the Dreamcast, which on a whim, I just bought that 2010 on eBay, saw it for $30 with 10 games, and I played some of the weirdest J-horror games I've ever seen, and I love them all.
We do love the Dreamcast. Seriously, Sega. If I dragged you in here by accident, first of all, sorry. Second of all, many Dreamcast. When's that happening? Come on, I know I got contacts over there, but you're absolutely right. Especially, you're absolutely right though when it comes to way back then. Is just that there was such a vast difference in how the consoles were. Like, I want to say it's like really the generation that the fifth generation of gaming, which is N64, PlayStation, Saturn, Atari Lynx, if you want to bring that into the conversation. Like really the last time that we had consoles that could be seen as putting out diverse, different quality of content. Like you could tell, okay, that's an N64 game, that's a PlayStation game. But after that, when we got to PlayStation 2, GameCube, and so on and so forth, like really all the games just look the same. They're all 480i polygonal games. They don't have that distinct difference that you could say a Nintendo game has versus a Master System or a SNES or a Genesis. Like, they've all kind of blurred together into this amorphous blob where really the only difference is the platform-specific games that are unique to the consoles. I think at some point I was supposed to answer why the heck I do this retro stuff too. I suppose this is good as opportunity as any. And it's a little bit like what Nemi and Chalor have been saying, that it does harken back to a similar time where it's I mean, it's the same reason they do like oldies radio stations, is at some point it's like I want to go back and listen to the things I liked as a kid. Maybe the things I didn't get to play at the time were the things that I'm passionate about. I know it's the same for a lot of us here, is that we have games, comfort games, and we'll certainly talk about them later. That is just any moment we want to play something that's familiar, especially if we want to amuse and entertain an audience on this platform, that these are the treasured games that we go back to, because it is fun to do a blind run of something and know that you're giving your audience a truly organic reaction to what's happening. Illbleed definitely jumps to mind in my case here, but there is something to be said for being able to play a game and go, okay, well, here's the secret thing over here. If you haven't played this game before, this is something you need to know, or such on and so forth. And what can I say? I just really love the retro.
Yeah. It also gives people like insight into like just sort of how like I played Jumping Flash, which is like a 30-minute acid trip if you play it all the way through.
Yes.
And I just so enjoyed playing that on stream because it gave an insight into it reminded me of like why like I look like a Jumping Flash character now. It reminded me of like where my own creativity and inspiration comes from, and I got to sort of share that with my own audience.
Can you talk about secrets in games, like especially with the internet now, like the really weird in-depth deep dive secrets you got to unlock in like old cartridge games? Those really don't exist as much anymore. The only one thing I can think of that modern is the MK11 hidden time towers, and that's it. But like all these old printed out sheets that people would hand around in high school and middle school,
it's just no equivalent for it anymore. I remember for me, just having like cheat codes and things in games kind of started dying around the time they introduced achievements in video games. Like, because like, okay, you put in this cheat code, suddenly you don't get achievements, and it's just they just don't want to have fun. Well, that's not to say that they don't put fun stuff like that in video games anymore, but it's always that very wonderful thing, downloadable content. Like I remember for the re-release of Dead Rising 2, Dead Rising Off the Record, they literally sold you the cheat codes as DLC, and they were pretty upfront and unabashed about it. It's ridiculous.
I just wanted to add too, for a lot of like streamers, it's hard to play new gen games because not a lot of people, they want to play them themselves. But when you play retro games, a lot of people have seen those games before and don't really care. So a lot of people will engage more. They're like, oh, what is that? I want to play that. Like, I don't really care. I want to watch you do it too. But with newer gen games, like, I don't know, like I remember I played The Last of Us recently and everybody was like, no, I don't want spoilers. But if you play a game from like 1990, everybody's going to be like, all right, I'll watch that. Do it up.
Yeah.
What do you mean Aerith kills Sephiroth kills Aerith? What are you doing to me over here?
It's 20 years ago, so you're like, spoilers? What do you mean?
I didn't know that.
Well, Shalar, I'm so sorry to have to inform you about that. sorry, my bad. But yeah, that is another big thing. No, go ahead.
You talked about it in one of your streams before, like especially when you're a smaller streamer like me. The market's cornered on AAA games. Like, if people are going to see AAA new release games, they're going to go see these big name quadruple digit or plus streamers play those games because they're a known quantity. But when you're smaller, you can get away with playing weird, random stuff that people wouldn't think about. And like, oh, what's this?
Right. It's like, for example, once again, the old Cyberpunk game that came out. If I decided I was going to play that, I know that that's not going to be a growth show because literally everyone and their mums is playing that game. It's just not going to work.
And you were smart. When Resident Evil 3 came out, you were like, sure, but we're going to kick it to the old school first, and then we'll catch Jill in that new wave a little bit later.
Exactly. I mean, because I got people in my own audience who are like, I want to experience that game myself. Please don't play it yet. So,
exactly.
Again, like you say, you can bust out this 20-year-old game. It's like, I'm pretty sure at this point, if you were going to play that game for yourself, you'd have done it by now. So,
right.
Statute of limitations is definitely up on something like that. To say nothing of the fact that it's definitely much more accessible to play these older games. Like, okay, I got the old Final Fantasy VII Remake in front of me here. Like, this thing is 100 gigs on your PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, we could wave around like 60. If you wave around that copy of Bug's Life or whatever it is you got over there, that thing literally fits on like nothing. That's like 300. That's like the data on that is just so much smaller. Like it's just so much easier to have to wrangle that sort of thing. It's without comparison. Like to have to be able to devote that kind of storage space on your computer or your console or something, it's just completely. There's just no comparison for it.
I downloaded you download Shadow of Mordor, you download Destiny, and like these giant games. It's just so much.
17 hours later.
Part of the reason I got into some of retro gaming this year was out of necessity too, because I didn't upgrade my PC until the summer this year. So I was like, what are some low res games on Steam that I can crank out? So we got the Half-Life. I can't even remember what else I got, but like Hercules, Aladdin, like these cool old games are still accessible in some places.
Ooh, I do love. Ooh, Phantasy Star. I do love the stuff being flashed at the camera.
I don't have a prop, but I have lip gloss. Hey.
Hey, what can I say? That's just as good in a pinch as well. Definitely is. I'm brain farting here for something. I swear it's something. Chilo, what are you showing me here? What do you got?
Oh,
let's do some show and tell.
Oh, okay. I've got Paper Mario that I doodled on for Nintendo 64.
I love that.
Banjo-Tooie, Pokemon Puzzle League. I miss it so much, and now that we have the internet, I wish that they would remake it because it was really good and super competitive. Bust a Move was fun. 64 was super fun. I also brought for the memes Barbie Pet Rescue.
Nice.
For the Game Boy Color.
I should have brought my Barbie game I got for Genesis out here.
Shout out to Barbie Super Sports.
One of those old pack like leaflet things that they used to put in games that I missed. I think they should do again because of the pretty pictures. I brought Chrono Cross and Final Fantasy IX.
Oh, those are good.
Which I both had to rebuy because I have scratched discs. And then my Game Boy SP because it's cute.
Having to rebuy those things because those are scratched, that is something we're definitely going to hit on shortly here. What I think we might do is we might start to move on to the next little topic of discussion is, so we've done why we retroed, which is in part because it's going back to familiar things, it's exposing a new audience to something it may not have seen before, and just because they're awesome. That's mostly the long and short of it right there. But a discussion on how we do it, because there's, of course, so many different ways that we can play these games on the internet. We can use just our own computer, or we can use external devices. In fact, I got a couple little graphics here I'm going to flash for the folks at home once I can find where I put that scene here. So, where did I put this one? Okay, so I got this really cute picture of Mr. Leon S. Kennedy here sitting in front of his old CRT monitor. Looks like he's playing that Sonic, that Sega Genesis collection I got on the Steam box or whatever. So what my boy Leon over here is doing is he's playing an old-timey game, but he's using exclusively his computer to do it. And the really nice thing about that is you don't have to pay for any external equipment, anything like that. It's just all on the computer. It's one less layer of complexity. It's just, it makes life so much easier when you don't have to finagle with the capture cards and making sure everything's plugged in and tripping over the giant group of wires. It's just makes life so much easier when you don't have to do that. Nem, you got something for me?
Do I?
Oh, you're holding up your hand. I thought maybe you had something.
Oh no,
for me.
I just play with my nails.
Just mistress hands.
Gotta love when you have a nail on. You're like, I would just play with them.
I just figured I would check. So of course we do have the option to play games locally on your PC, and like the little bullet points there say, there's no need for additional hardware. There's a lot of publishers are making an earnest attempt to make their games more accessible on other platforms. Like for example, I keep making this joke, Sonic 2 is available on more platforms than Skyrim. So there's a lot of publishers making a very good job to make sure that their back catalog is available on everything. And of course, there is the old wink, wink, nudge, nudge that, of course, that sooner or later everything comes to PC. But that's a whole separate discussion. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull up another little graphic here for the folks at home that talks about using an external console, using this extremely wonderful old-timey photo from, oh god, these kids. Sorry, I got this really old Nintendo promotional image here, and I keep thinking that kid's holding the controller backwards, but he's actually not. So the other way that we can retro, of course, is we could use an external console. So you could have, a lot of us do Nintendo Switch stuff. So you hook up ye old Nintendo Switch to the computer. This does increase the cost and complexity, because now you have to have a capture card installed into the computer. You might need additional devices as well, depending on what kind of console you're hooking up, which again, I'll get into some more pictures there in just a moment. But it does at least ensure that you are at least replicating the authentic hardware experience, which, depending on your game, may or may not be a good thing. It is also, of course, as it says there as well, a de facto dual PC streaming setup. Now, what do I mean by that? So when we play, for example, how did you pronounce DBD over there, Chalora?
Dibida.
Exactly. When you're playing a Dibida, and I'm just gonna cut back to the main page here for just a moment here. When you're playing a Dibida, it's all locally on the computer. Now you might have to play. For example, if you're just playing the game on your computer, you're not streaming it, you can probably crank the settings all the way up to max, because there's no problem with that. But the minute you start streaming it, now your computer's handling video rendering on the fly as well as the game. Sometimes the stream could become choppy, or you gotta dumb the settings down. It's a pain. So what some folks do is they actually play on one computer, the video gets exported to another computer, and then that's the computer that's actually streaming. And when you're playing with a console on capture, that's basically what you're doing. I'm gonna pull on a fairly simplified diagram here. So let's say for a moment that Nemi, who is particularly enamored with Super Mario Sunshine, also a budding speedrunner of that game in their own right, wants to play Super Mario Sunshine. Now, the easiest way for them to do that these days is to use ye old Super Mario 3D All-Stars on the Nintendo Switch. They output that thing to the fancy schmancy HDMI capture card, and boom, everything works fantastic. Now, if they wanted to, say, use a Wii or a GameCube as part of it, it does get a little bit more difficult, because the Wii by itself does not have an HDMI port on it, which is what a lot of the contemporary capture hardware uses. So in the middle, you have to have some kind of upscaler device, either composite or component. The one I actually have pictured here is that's the one that I use. I think, Chalora, I recommended that one to you as well.
You sure
So it
did.
acts as an intermediary to allow ye old-timey console to hook into your computer. Now, if you want to get really crazy with it, chat is immediately going to just go, what the heck am I looking at here? You could get a lot more complex with it, which is what I do over on my channel. As you can see, there's quite a few degrees of separation between the console and the computer. You've got it hooked up in what has to be objectively the dumbest, most over-the-top, useless combination of anything that ever... But it results in the most wonderful degraded picture quality, I'll tell you. So you've got the old-timey console. For example, I did this on Tuesday. I played Genesis, hooked up through the old coax cable to a VCR. The VCR is attached to the upscaler, at which point it gets fed through a splitter, in case I'm using a PS3, because PS3s don't like to capture. Then it goes into an audio splitter, so I can send it to 2 different places. It goes to the capture card. Your eyeballs tell you it's crap. It's fantastic. Now that I think I'm done confusing chat with that diagram, I'm going to cut back to the main panel here. That was a lot of pictures. All right, so it's a lot to have to deal with. So I will say the floor is yours. Who wants to go first and explain how they prefer to show their games on their channel?
I honestly tried to use an old console upscaler to the capture card, but for some reason, I guess the one I bought just does not work. It does not upscale worth a dam, and it just finagling it to even make any sort of picture, let alone an upscaled picture. I don't even care if the graphics are upscaled. It just doesn't look good, and there's always this weird audio delay on everything. So I just bit the bullet and just said, no, I'm just going to do it all on my computer. Everything comes to PC. Just capture through the computer, and that's it. Cut out the middleman. Do it myself.
Exactly. There is, like I said, there is something to be said for cutting out all the complexity and just doing it local. I don't have to worry about if the console falls off the desk or, well, that's mostly it, the console falling off the desk. And for you, perhaps the picture quality being degraded, well, didn't work for you, especially if there's that nasty-ass audio delay. It's not necessarily an issue for me. I do know that with some combination of capture cards and upscalers, I had this really cool thing happen. It happened several times now where my capture card, it just shows everything like on a really weird diagonal, and it's just completely unusable. And I don't know if it's necessarily the Elgato saying, hey, I'm done with this, or if something's going off with the upscaler, but it's not always a perfect science. It doesn't work out all the time as much as I'd like.
I drink. I don't have time for wires.
Exactly. I mean, I could take a picture of all the wires I got dangling on the floor down here, and chat would be truly mortified. So I got standard. I see. There's only so many things I'm willing to show the Twitch front page. I'll show the Twitch front page how I do all this. I am not showing them the wires setup. It's just not happening. That'll get us taken off in a heartbeat. Exactly. It helps nobody. So, Nemi, you're pretty big into doing a Mario Sunshine over on your channel. You, like I said, you're getting pretty fast at that game. How do you like to play that?
I obviously do not wires. The wires are not my friend. I am also a clean freak, so seeing the wires drives me insane. So what I try to do is when I'm playing a retro game, I make sure I'm doing research and figure out what consoles it's on so I can figure out what's going. I'm wearing a nail. I'm using my hands.
Go for it.
So I try to figure out what is the least. I'm gonna just put my hands in my lap now. I try to figure out what has the least amount, or what is the latest console it is on, so I can use the least amount of wires. So for Super Mario Sunshine, and nothing. You said that I could do it on new gen Switch, but the problem is when they ported it, they made it so you can't do speedrun strats. So I have to run it on GameCube with that cute little thing you showed me because I can't do the HDMI. So right. I have all the setups under my desk too. I try to keep everything through a capture card. A capture card is my best friend. You can hook an HDMI into it as many times as you need. I put my Xbox, my 360, my Wii U, my everything on it, and it is lovely. Makes it super easy for me. I can't stand the wires though, but thankfully I don't play super retro like y'all do with all the finagling and all that fun stuff, but I just do it as simple as I can.
Exactly. Simplicity is just, I mean, look, I mean, I have this big dedicated space that I can use for all this, the setup that I showed, but it's definitely not for everyone. It's like, I'm looking at it, and again, it's a disaster. It is not
I got a
pretty.
GameCube, and my GameCube is all I need.
Chilara, hit me. Sometimes we wandering over in your channel and you're playing Paper Mario. How do you do that?
I ask my husband because I'm an 80-year-old lady. And if he doesn't know, I ask Pib. And then I just do whatever they say.
Yes. Pib is a great resource. Shout outs to Pib.
What can I say? I'm here to serve and serve. And of course, my bevy of knowledge is, of course, available to the members of Stream Queens. I do like to serve as a technical advisor for the team. And, Sixy, hit me. You got you do all kinds of things, because I seen you playing that new PC version of Metal Gear, but you're also waving around the Sony PlayStation palette. Hit me.
Yes. So I'm still learning about some retro things. So most of my retro gaming has been done to what's mostly immediately accessible to me. So there's able to find things that are downloadable and playable in like the PSN app or the Xbox Game Pass. Outside of that, I've worked with backwards compatibility because it's the easiest thing for now, and I'm interested in learning. I'm interested in your wires, Pib. I've got questions for your wires, but I'm entering that. I'm already in Pib's DMs, ready to learn more because I have these games that I want to stream and like just make it all fabulous and wonderful. So I'm still learning, but I've any retro games that I've been able to find, like the things that are available on Steam, Metal Gear hitting GOG was a godsend. So I'm all about the retro spirit and still learning some of the retro tech.
I think the Game Pass is a really good alternative too. I think because there's a lot of remakes happening nowadays, so I think people are recognizing that older gen is where it's at because everybody's doing a remake nowadays. 2020 or 2020, sorry, excuse me, was the year of the remake, and everybody was doing it. And then the Game Pass for PS4, they have one for Xbox too. Everybody loves to port it, make it easier for you. So I think it's a great place to start, at least if you're looking to get into retro.
That Game Pass is pretty good. The thing that's all with that, and we're going on a side, but heck, we're taking this conversation wherever it goes. So the folks over at the Zopix or the Xbox, whatever you want to call them, have been making what I guess I would call a real earnest attempt to keep their backwards compatibility alive. It's not 100%, especially since I'm pretty sure I think you might be able to count on your fingers and your toes how many actual original Xbox games have backwards compatibility on the Xbox One and the Series S, X, whatever it's called this week, and still have fingers and toes left. But it's a very large collection of 360 games that technically, depending on where you stick the first down marker on this, those games are retro, because you got to remember the 360 came out in 2006. Mm-hmm. So between having, like, of course, all the Xbox One games, 360 games, some Xbox original games, that rare replay compilation they got over there, it does make it much more accessible, especially with the Game Pass, because Game Pass has got that rare replay thing in it, which is a pretty nice little retro compilation in its own right. Nintendo's
I wish
go ahead.
More of these companies would like do that. I know we're gonna get to like maintain, but I just wish more companies would do things along those lines because it's just important.
Yeah,
we want to play your games. We're out there. The money's there to be had.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see what we got here next. What do my notes say? I suppose we talked about how we retro. We talked about the capture cards. We talked about the PC ports, and of course, modern technology. But let's go ahead. We're gonna wade a little bit into that topic you were just starting to broach over there. Is the efforts we would really appreciate if these companies were making more of a direct effort to make their back catalogs more accessible, because we all know, just kind of with a wink and a nudge, that certain games are probably, of course, very easy to just, find and play. We're not gonna give out that kind of information in this kind of time slot here, but we have these examples of, for example, Konami just put Metal Gear Solid and a couple other games on GOG, which offers us a legitimate means to compensate these companies for the games that they have put out. And you're leaving money on the table if you're not making an earnest effort to make these games more accessible, because otherwise you're just leaving it to, and I'm going to go ahead and use the sound effect here for dramatic effect here. You're leaving it up to the emulators. Now I know that's kind of a dirty word, but it's usually because it's associated with the more salacious connotation that perhaps there could be people out there theoretically engaging in software theft. I wouldn't know a thing about that. Nobody on here certainly knows anything about that. But that being said, there are legitimate... Shalora's dying over there. I love it. I don't know if chat's hearing this, but I've got my soundboard up here, so I piped in the crickets at some point there as well. But
we aren't hearing it, but they are.
Exactly. So we talked about the Super Mario 3D All-Stars thing that's got the Mario Sunshine on it. Now, for being real here, that is legally a form of emulation. It's just being sanctioned by the publisher because the game obviously is an original GameCube game. Your Nintendo Switch is not a GameCube. There's no little place to shove the little little GameCube disc on there. I mean, believe me, I looked. There's just no place to put that thing. So that is a form of publisher-accepted emulation. I talked about the Sonic as well. They've got that Sega collection over on Steam. And like literally every other console, that is an accepted form of replicating a system. Because what's going on? The base to emulate, let's just knock it a little bit back to just the base of the term, is to pretend to be something else. I'm overgeneralizing it, but that's the long and short of it. So when I fire up the old Steam and say, hey, I'd like to play Comic Zone, for example, it's not as though my computer just spontaneously transforms into a Genesis or something. It says, okay, I'm going to use specialized software to replicate the old-timey Genesis, and that's what you're going to be playing. So... And I'm probably gonna be throwing the floor a lot here to Lucy as well, because I know you're especially passionate about not just in terms of gaming, but in other formats too. Is that gaming history is kind of at an impasse where not everyone wants to make these games accessible, and if not for the enthusiasts archiving stuff like this, games like here, I'll go ahead and make Deer Clutch Pearls over here. Games like Illbleed might never be able to be enjoyed ever again if not for stuff like that. Lucy, I know you got some notes especially on that and for the VHS stuff as well, so I'm going to give you the floor for a couple of minutes if you want.
Oh, I'm about to filibuster this, so...
Do it. Fill my buster.
No, it's an entire thing, and I just read an article by Dr. Abigail DeKosnik, and she is the associate professor at Berkeley, and she's in charge of the Center of Media Preservation. And she wrote several articles on the fact that piracy is preservation, especially in societal collapses. Piracy, not just for video games, but also going back decades and even millennia. There are certain texts that we have from the classical period and the early modern period and the medieval period that only exist today because they had unauthorized reproductions and forgeries made out of them. Doctor Who, several episodes are only found today because they were pirated. The Star Wars Holiday Special, which I watch every year around this time, only exists because it was pirated on VHS. We are all living in a state of decay and entropy. These magnetic floppy disks, and this is from my first ever console as a kid, the Atari home computer system, the Atari XL800. These magnetic disks, they lose their integrity because their batteries died. So eventually they're going to not be playable unless they're ripped and preserved. And the Library of Congress has only been preserving digital media or non-traditional media since the year 2000. Piracy has kept over 10,000 software codes and pieces of software alive and preserved and extant since the 1960s.
Exactly. That you hit the nail on the head right there, because we're starting to see it now, especially with NES games and Game Boy games. It's just that those batteries on those cartridges, those things don't last forever, and they're just starting to go bye-bye.
Nintendo put out 721 SNES games in North America. On the now defunct Nintendo Wii Virtual Console, they only released 74 games for the SNES. That is only 10% of the entire catalog that was preserved. And Nintendo is just leaving money on the table. And if they don't allow people to back these games up, like, and I'll say, I don't support piracy. I'm not going to tell you where to get things. I only have abandonware or things I have physical copies of. Legally, I'm going to say that. And it's true. For the most part.
And the fact
and without preservation, these things are going to be lost forever.
Yeah.
Period. The end.
And meanwhile, there's all these like ridiculous news stories about Soldier Boys in the world ripping these games and selling them in like knockoff Nintendo Soldier boxes.
Oh my god, I remember that.
Right,
so it's all that from my memory.
Right, like it's a thing, and as ridiculous as these stories are, you're absolutely right. Money is left on the table because people will drop the few dollars. The coin Metal Gear Solid for $10. Like, so many people just need to know about that, and they're there.
Well, and like if the original producer's not going to sell it, somebody else will.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that made that originally, it's art. Like
Art.
somebody wrote it, so people, it's writing, it's art, it's a visual art as well, and music, and everything else in there. It's art. Like, let people have it.
Yeah.
Speaking of remakes, I mean, this is sort of the thing that happened with the very ill-fated Silent Hill 2 and 3 HD remaster. Konami lost the original code for the game, and they had to slapdash some crap together to remake the game, and it was horrible.
Horrible.
The folk, I mean, I did the HD collection a few months ago, and if there's anyone in my orbit who's there, they can attest to it, is that the visuals just were not as good. Because what happened is, like you said, they did not archive the game's code, and back then they weren't necessarily doing that with the degree of regularity they do now. So when they handed off the porting job to a third-party company to make for them, they were going off incomplete beta code, so not only did they have to deal with problems that would have been solved during the production of the game, they had to also fix things that would have come up as part of the porting process. And meanwhile, you've got PC versions of these games just laying out there, and they just, I don't know if it's because they got a agreement with whoever ported it originally that they just don't want to come to terms with them or something, but it's a lot of stuff that's just not gonna make it out there if not for the enthusiasts who are keeping these things alive, because the private sector, it seems, only wants to do so much. I had a thought, but I can't remember. Keep going.
Oh, we have like when WoW did the vanilla WoW suddenly, because they have a ongoing game, but they deleted old content, and now they're reselling the old content back to you.
Yep.
Or
like a bird feeding their children.
at least Capcom never went after the fan servers for Resident Evil Outbreak.
Oh gosh, please don't let them ever go over those after those servers. Please, for the love of everything, please leave the Resident Evil Outbreak servers alone. Unless you're issuing a remake, then we can talk about it. Then we can have that discussion, Capcom. Right.
Really quick, I just want to say, I'm just gonna say Dark Cloud for K Lucky Dog. That's all.
There you go. That is a classic.
Downright esoteric.
There's a particularly poignant example that I can remember from not necessarily way back, but there was back when the Scott Pilgrim versus the World film came out. There was a particularly notable tie-in game that originally saw release for some of the PS3, 360, and Wii, and due to the licensing rights on it expiring or what have you, they eventually stopped selling it and became like the perpetual holy grail of why can't we get this game? This game was so good, but it never released in a physical format. And I think they just fixed that recently, but I know it became one of the diehard examples that people would fall back on and say that we can't fully rely on just digital distribution alone because titles go away. I mean, again, we got that really big one that got removed yesterday from the PlayStation Store. I'm not giving them any more airtime on this platform, on this particular panel here. But you got other examples like there's a couple of James Bond ones that come to mind in Steam. You can't buy those anymore because rights just went away. Scott Pilgrim versus the World, you weren't able to buy that for the longest time. You can do that now, and there's just so many examples of where when we have a video game that ties in with PT is a good example there. You didn't even have to buy that game.
It was supposed to actually be backwards compatible with the PS5, and Konami released a patch to prevent it from being backwards compatible.
You're exactly correct.
Actively sabotaging.
Konami did actively sabotage that. You're correct, because I did read an article that had someone did the PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5 data migration, and they actually did have the demo for PT, and I'll just do a quick interjection here for those that don't know what I'm talking about. PT was a playable teaser for a Silent Hill game that never came to be, which is a whole separate discussion unto itself.
People call Konami like the unofficial child of PT.
Exactly. So what they did is Konami took that thing off like the PlayStation Store once they decided they were gonna send Mr. Kojima packing. And for the longest time, a PlayStation 4 that had that game on it was considered like a holy grail. Like, those things physically actually had monetary value. So when this game dev, I don't have the name on me, but I'm swearing this is true. My source, I know my sources shouldn't just be, trust me on this, but I did actually read it. I'm not making this up. They did the data migration from PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5. The copy of PT went along for the ride, and it actually worked. But once they did an operating system update that they were apparently required to do as part of an embargo or something, magically PT stopped working. Imagine that. Another piece of gaming history that we can't have because the powers that be decided we weren't allowed to have that anymore, and that's why. It's because that's the thing now. PlayStation 4s, you can start to tinker with those. You can, I'm not saying literally open them up and tinker, but you know, you can start to have a little bit of fun with those. And now people have the framework to start putting that forgotten demo. I'm going to make that abundantly clear. That was a demo.
Free.
Game cost nothing. Game is a demo. That now we have the framework to start being able to play that game again on a modified console. But it's just, it's an amazing part of gaming history that, again, if not for enthusiasts, we just would not have it.
Yeah.
I had another example, but I'm blanking. Does anybody have something? You don't have to, but I'm just saying, hey, the floor is yours.
I think that was a great example. I remember the controversy with PT was astronomical, and I even didn't know anything about the code being like all that stuff. And I think that's a great piece of information to have because that game was great. I had to do so much research to actually play it on my channel because it's such a piece of history. I think it's a great example to look at that from the articles and the news articles to look at it and dive into it to really see what's going on there. Really great piece, especially because the gameplay, it was free. It was a demo. It was on the store. They were doing everything with it. Then it just disappeared. It was a very bizarre moment in gaming history. And I don't mean to like pull the history card with gaming, but it definitely was like it was a moment.
It stands out. It's
Yeah,
one of our,
exactly.
I think, most recent, it's our best, most recent example of what we're talking about, I think.
It actually is, yeah.
Absolutely.
Because, and again, this is another part too, where it's not just necessarily that the powers that be have decided that we can't have this. They took their ball and went home. Some of them just never show up with their ball to begin with, because we've got older, I'll just throw a name out there. Let's say an old Nintendo game called 8 Eyes. I'm not gonna lie, it's not a particularly fantastic game. It's sort of a Castlevania ripoff, but I'm just using it for the purposes of discussion. I don't think. Oh my God!
Lucy, stay
wow.
ready.
This was not a prepared bit.
If you stay ready, you ain't got to get it.
But I got you, fam.
I hit the round of applause button. My God. Okay, seriously, chat, this was not a prepared bit. Okay. So, suppose you got a game like that, for example. I don't know, and I believe that was published by IRM, if I'm remembering properly. I don't know that there's exactly a bustling industry of them turning around and reselling this game to us. I know, like, Data East is pretty good about it these days, but some of these games are just never realistically going to be part of any kind of a sanctioned compilation of any kind. And again, if not for the people who take the archiving of this stuff so seriously, we would never have it. And to speak again to something else that Lucy brought up earlier, is that the degradation of these cartridges, and not just the cartridges, the consoles, the discs, is very real. The rule of one of the rules of, I'm just going to say mechanics, I don't know what it actually is rules, but anything with moving parts breaks. Every console's got, any disc-based console's got moving parts. I got a PlayStation 3 I use for this show. Disk drive, and it doesn't work anymore. If I didn't have games already installed on it, or a framework with which to put the games that I already have on it, the thing would basically just be flat out useless. The console, I mean, and that's not exactly it's not exactly an old console either. It's not even old enough to learn how to drive or anything. Just can't have that anymore. And we've got the batteries, like you waved around that copy of the original Final Fantasy. Batteries die. The cartridge basically becomes useless. Discs are especially going to start being affected by this, because the magnetic, like the plastic on it is just physically starting to degrade. as sooner or later, like I know 60, you got that copy of Bug's Life over there. Treasure that thing, because probably in about 20 years, I wager that thing's not actually going to work anymore.
Don't say that.
I know. It pains me to have to say something like that, but it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I'd hold you if I could, but I'm stuck in this square. I can't help you.
Just put on a mask and hold me.
That's what let me actually was what I'm going to bring up too, but I didn't want to take too much time. But MMOs that get defunct and then exist on private pirate server, like EverQuest Online Adventures for the PS2. I loved that game.
Oh my
Matrix
god!
Online, that weird mess of a game.
Remember
Honestly,
the
if y'all want to go off on dead MMOs for a while, honest to goodness, be my guest.
I have a funny story. I don't know if you've been to my channel in a while, and everybody from my chat work is gonna drag me for this. But there's a dead MMO that I played. I put about 10 grand into it. I know this sounds ridiculous, but it was to cosmetically change your characters. It died, then it got revived, so I put more money on it. Then it died again. I already put more money. I put a couple of $1,000 back into it. It died again, and it revived itself again, and I put more money into it after it keeps dying, and then it died. But, you know, MMOs, private servers, never the same. It's so sad. MMOs are like my favorite. Private servers are honestly a saving grace, but they're definitely never the same.
Like EverQuest and EverQuest 2 are still ongoing, and this had expansions this month. I love them, but FF14 has just spoiled me for every of them. I can't go back. It's FF14. The controller is just too easy to play.
Big on it, yeah.
And you brought up another good point earlier, is that WoW Classic, because it used to be, I'm old enough to remember back when WoW was brand new. It was a funny thing in college because I went to college in around 2005, and the rules seemed to be the better your laptop was, the higher grade you were going to drop out because you were just spending all your time playing World of Warcraft. But obviously the game that they have out now is not the same game they were putting out then, and Blizzard, to an extent, saw that there was a genuine market desire for playing the old-timey World of Warcraft, because as anyone who's played that game any time in the last 10 years can tell you, the game is evolving. It is changing how the game is played, what the locations are, how fast you level up, and there was a desire by people who apparently don't remember how grindy that game used to be, but that's, you know, neither here nor there, to play the game as it was originally envisioned. And so they eventually put out the WoW Vanilla, WoW Classic, whatever it is, because they saw that, hey, people want this. People are willing to violate our IP in order to do this. Why don't we make a couple of bucks off of it? So
After shutting down the fan servers of WoW Vanilla.
Oh, of course, yes. I mean,
that also ties into their controversy with Warcraft 3 Reforged.
Oh God.
Yeah.
That I'm not well versed on that. Why don't you hit us with a few bars on that?
Okay, so apparently Warcraft 3 is supposed to be an HD remix. First of all, they broke a lot of promises with like cinematic cutscenes and everything. The trailers and demos and game footage they showed was all a lie. But the biggest controversy was the fact that anything you make in the custom games is owned by Blizzard, and they reserve the right to not give you any compensation or credit for making them, because they're still salty about Dota, Heroes of the Storm, League of Legends being basically and conceptualized in a Warcraft 3 OG custom game, and then making its own thing, and then the fact that it's bigger than their Dota or whatever the hell they. I don't play MOBAs. I'm sorry, but yeah.
It blows my mind.
Sorry. Go ahead.
It blows my mind that, like, when that sort of stuff happens, it's almost like let's say you make something really beautiful and someone makes it almost like alternative and like somehow better. It's like, why aren't we hiring that person and being like, thank you, let's work together, like come on over here and let's make money together. It's like, you're out.
I think it speaks to
like, and it's like, okay, relax, chill out. Like,
yeah.
Oh my God.
It's power of capitalism, baby.
Yeah, I think that speaks to the issue. Like, I think that's also a bit of why we like the older era of games, because it was sort of before everything became so money grabby and capitalism driven, and there was access to everything, at least a little bit more, back when these games were new, when they weren't retro.
Had to have them working out the gate, or else it was going to be a pricey recall, and companies did not want that back then. Nami, did you add something?
I also have a great example for a game being shut down and reopened because they thought that it was better before, and that's Club Penguin. Club Penguin,
God.
they shut down,
You beat me to
and
it.
made a remake, and then it flopped. I'm call out post, it flopped, so they brought back the original because what? It's a banger. So, I mean, just for example.
Let 'em know.
Just wanted to put that out there.
Hey, I'll take it. I thought I had one more here, but
And that's
yeah,
on
I mean-
partner.
see, when you now there are enthusiast fan things out there where they recognize that someone's putting in work unpaid and they decide to elevate that. So, for example, I want to say I'm not 100% on this, but I think Streets of Rage 4 might have started out as a fan game before. It was like, oh, what if we license this and bring this on board? There's a compilation for the Nintendo DS of the Genesis game, the Sonic Genesis games. It's entirely credited to one person because he's the person who invented the Genesis DS emulator. They brought him on board to do the compilation for them. So it's this wild thing where if someone has a good idea like this, for example, you had the Dota that sprang off into a million different games like League and what have you, where if you don't bring in these people with these good ideas, someone else is going to do it for you, and it's not going to be on your terms.
Like when they if you don't remember the old classic like early FMV games like Seventh Guest and 11th Hour, they were trying to kickstart a third game. The Kickstarter for the third game failed, but a fan project, 13th Doll, succeeded. So the people who were making the 13th Doll, or the trilogy, the last number of Seventh Guest trilogy, said, "Hey, let's just give these fan devs money and make it a canon game."
Story checks out. I mean,
There's so
God,
much of that with game companies that like they aren't paying attention to the people that are playing the games. Like you need to pay attention to the people that are doing these remakes. You need to make things accessible for people that are streaming. Like if you make things accessible to people that are streaming it, that is endless free promotion for your product, and that is money in the bank more than anything that a lot of these companies are doing right now.
we are gradually turning into the modern day video game reviewer because we're giving people recommendations as they happen.
I also want to speak on that. I think that not a lot of video game companies understand and realize that your game is still existent. You don't need to make more games. The ones in the past can still get you somewhere. They recognize you. You don't need to keep pumping out new games like Pokemon is doing every new game. As much as I love Pokemon, they do a
Nintendo's
new
coming
game.
for you.
I know, they shut off my camera. Oh my god! They do so many new games, but they don't recognize that the ones in the past don't get as much love as the new ones. That people stream it and people love it, and it's one of the most popular ones. So I just think it speaks on that. Like, people will still stream your old games.
Yeah, like Rihanna hasn't put out music in how long, and she's still making money
Exactly.
on that music. Like,
Yes!
come on, it's the same thing. You work smarter, not harder.
One
Put
of
out a
the
clothing line.
One of the things that I feel like, especially in Bethesda case, I feel like there's this one thing that just really gnaws at them, is that they created Skyrim, which is, I've never played it personally, but I hear it's very good. One of the most accredited and celebrated RPGs out there, and they have no extra way of monetizing it besides just selling you the game. There's not really a degree of microtransactions within them. It's almost like they got ESO Online, they got Fallout 76. It's like so many of these games nowadays they're a means to an end to bring in money. I mean, hey, if they amuse the heck out of us, that's great, but so much of it is being lost in the modern day product that often that's why we go back to the past, because that was back when you bought a game and like I seen a tweet where someone said something to the effect of, I remember back when DLC was expansion packs. I remember back when there wasn't expansion packs. They just all did a game and that was it.
Cheat
One and
codes.
done.
Exactly,
Come on,
cheat
Game
codes.
Shark.
Exactly. Come on, Game Shark. That's another thing you can't do anymore.
Yeah.
The only Shark Week I want is a Game Shark Week. Listen.
I could
for
reach
you-
my old Game Genie, but I'm not going to break my spine to do it.
Yeah. You've already gone and reached for something I wasn't expecting you to before. So we'll let you stay undefeated, unbeaten on that there. But that's another thing that was really fun back then with the games is you would buy, and again for the kids in attendance, what we're referring to is with the Game Genie and other versions, the Action Replay, the Game Shark, is this little intermediary cartridge that would sit between other cartridges. So you'd have your game, the cheat device, and the console. And you could use it for all kinds of crazy things like infinite lives or making Sonic green and making all kinds of inappropriate jokes about that or something like that. Or to have Sephiroth be in your party, because apparently he's the good guy now or something. That's another thing that's lost in modern gaming, that we do not have really the framework to play with these games in the manner that we did back then.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it stinks.
Yeah.
Best I can
Yeah.
do is a Super Game Boy.
Like
oh
a
God,
game
yes.
And even just like I guess in the way I think about a game like a Mario Party, where I think the third Mario Party is like the Mario Party, and like there's just there's not a way to like there's something so cool about just being in a room with people, which I mean that's difficult for other reasons this year, but just
True.
being in the same room with people playing a game like that and just seeing it evolve into this 3D mess. I don't know.
It's trash, mama.
It's trash, mama. Hot garbage.
Yeah.
It's a smoldering take, but it's absolutely correct as far as I'm concerned. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna move on here a little bit to another topic here. I quizzed all y'all for what a game that was really special to you. Let's say I'm actually just gonna read the thing verbatim here. Let's say you're trapped on. I'm gonna do a stupid voice for this. You're trapped on a desert island with your streaming PC, a lifetime supply of your adult beverage of choice, but you only got one retro game. What game is it? I want you to sell chat on this game. When did it come out? What system? Do you got memories associated with it? What would you want to tell a captive audience of however many people are here? Let me know who wants to go first, because I do got B-roll I got to pull up, and it does me no good if Chalora starts talking, but I pull up Nemi's one instead. Who wants the floor first? Otherwise, I'm gonna go eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Right? Not Lucy. I'll go. I'll start.
All right, hit me, Sixy.
So
Tell me about this game.
I picked a game called Champions of Norath. It is a Snowblind Productions game. It is on the PlayStation 2. It is a dungeon crawler. The reason I chose this game is because it is endless. There are, from the very beginning of the game, there are a couple paths that you can take. A lot of people equate it to games like Diablo. What's that other one? Baldur's Gate. And it's just a lot of fun. There's a lot of customability. As you can see, there's a fierce black tittied out mage that I got to be.
I can see it right now.
There's the characters are just really cool. The elves look like Bratz dolls. Shout out to Nemesis, hashtag Nem for partner. And just it's so much fun. It introduced me to dungeon crawlers and playing as elves and dark elves and mages, erudite wizards and shit. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. So it's just a really fun game. You can take two split paths, a good path, an evil path. Lots of replayability, lots of customability, and some pigment for your life. Melanin.
Exactly. All right, who wants to go next? Otherwise, I'm going to draw straws.
Can I say something really quick? I want to speak on that we need more melanin and just more POC in video games. We need more beautiful goddesses like that. Bring it back. Start doing it. Stop being like that. Like, come on now. Like, I mean,
if you're
get into it.
If you're gonna remake your game, just update the skin. Give us some hue sliders and call it a
Don't give us 3 foundation shades like those makeup brands do.
Give us hue shaders, quality hair.
Character creator. We got 5 shades of taupe.
Yeah, right.
Oh my goodness, yes. Let's not innovate all at once here, my goodness.
They'll give you all the white colors and then green.
Yeah.
And then green.
I don't know if there's a deer in attendance, but once again, you were playing a game whose name I will not repeat, and apparently you couldn't even have blonde hair. That's just how bad the character creator on that was. And that's without getting into the rest of the thing that thing does.
What's funny, I would support that. Like, if in a regular game for there to not be a blonde option, that'd be kind of lit. And-
Oh.
I mean, they've always had it, Mama.
Can I get
Where's our
five
red
more of those
demon mime
blocks?
names? You know what I'm saying?
I remember
My
back
goodness.
in vanilla EverQuest, the only way to play a black person was to play a different race called Erudite.
Oh fuck, that's happening in
Humans
this
could
game I
not
just
be
talked
black in the
about.
original release of EverQuest at all.
Well, I gotta change my game.
We've come so far, but sometimes there's still a lot we got to do. All right, tell you what, Chalora, I'm gonna hit you up next here. Your favorite game was Fire Emblem for the GBA. Sell me on your desert island game.
Fire Emblem Blazing Blade was the first ever
Yes.
Fire Emblem that was released in North America, as all the other ones were released only in Japan. And it was one of my favorite. It is one of my favorite games for sure. I grew up playing that game. I probably didn't beat it until I was in high school, and then you find out after you beat it that there's a hard mode, and the story completely changes with another character. And it's just an incredible strategy game. I learned how to read. I learned how to do math. I learned how to do critical thinking. Games do teach you things. What a concept.
Mhm.
So it is a tactical RPG strategy game with deep lore, deep character design, unlike all the new Fire Emblem games that are very predictable.
Oh.
And there's a lot of secrets in Fire Emblem games for sure. Like we were talking about earlier, like sometimes to get a character, you have to step on a very particular square on a very particular turn with a very particular character just to get these little secrets. So I think it's an incredible game. And yeah.
Hey, that
Sorry.
works to me. Oh no, it's perfectly fine.
Don't drag my Fire Emblem 3 houses. How dare you, Talora?
Come for me, come for me. Martha
I don't wanna-
Shook.
I don't want to hear about your predictable character.
Oh my god!
personality.
Oh my.
Can you
The demons are
romance
fighting.
one?
What?
Can you romance in that game you just said? The
Yes.
Fire Emblem one? Oh,
There
perfect.
are choices in the game depict like you have so to do the support stuff, you can't go back to base. If they die, they die. They're gone.
Yeah.
Like to support each other, they have to actually fight next to each other during the
Mhm.
battle. And it
Yeah.
grows like an affection level that's secret and you can't see it. And then you have to do that support in the battles. So you have to put them together again, which might put them in danger. And at the end of the game, they'll tell you like, oh, so and so, they tell them like just in text, like what they do after the war or whatever.
Yeah.
And sometimes they get married and they have kids, or like, if they die alone, it's whatever.
Work. There's hope.
I remember playing a Fire Emblem. I can't remember exactly which one for the 3DS, but I remember there was a difficulty selector at the beginning that was like, okay, you can play it so that if the units fall in battle, they're not gone forever. And then there's the
Yep.
one where you play like regular. I'm like, I'm not playing this.
Yeah.
I'm not playing this kiddie mode. We're gonna do it the old-fashioned way. And every time someone dies, I just rage quit the game.
Yeah.
That was
Happens every
for sure.
single time.
There was countless times where I would just quit the game entirely, start a new file, because it was like my characters are too weak, I did something wrong, I chose the wrong characters, or whatever, and I have to restart completely.
Good
So
stuff.
those games were hard.
All right, Nemi, I'm going to hit you up next. I want you to tell me why Mario Sunshine is the game of the year all years.
Okay, kind of a controversial opinion because some of y'all in chat were like, oh my goodness, like GameCube is not retro. Well, I got news for you. The GameCube is 19 years old. It is considered retro, even if you don't think so. I'm so sorry. Everybody's clutching their pearls. I'm so sorry. But it's so good. I think the mechanics, I started speedrunning it lately because it's just so easy to go back to revert, to go back to this era of early platformers, early 3D platformers, doing lots of fun stuff with it. It has super great replayability, whatever that word is. That's why they ported it to the Switch, because they know it's a good game. But yeah, I am obsessed with it. It came out the GameCube came out in 2001, and I think it was one of the games that came out very close after it was released, because it is a great selling point for a GameCube. But it has great mechanics. Everything is solid. But yeah, that's why my game is the favorite. I am currently ranked number 1024 in speedrunning Super Mario Sunshine in full drag. And shout out to Pib, because Pib's a drag queen speedrunner as well. But it's a great game, so I love it. And Princess Peach looks hot as hell in it, and she's got a nice dress and a ponytail in, like me today. And Mario's pretty cute too.
Peach got a good dumpy. Peach got a good dumpy.
Oh shit, Mario's got a dumpy. I let him hit it.
I'm gonna let this clip run for another 20 seconds just so we can all adore that for just a second here.
Oh, and look at those piantas. The piantas, love them.
Oh
They're
my goodness, yes.
Stunning.
Are they papayas?
I have no idea what they are, but they're cute too. Hey.
Hey, papaya.
I'm gonna cut back to the main panel here, because one of the things in that brings up another interesting thing here. Before I get to Lucy's favorite game, is that for the longest time, because again, you're right, that was basically, if not a GameCube launch title, it came out pretty early on for that particular console, and for the longest time, people were screaming, give us Mario Sunshine, because there was a period of time for the Wii where they were re-releasing GameCube games with upgraded Wii controls or whatever, and they didn't do it. And when the Wii U came out, and they were releasing GameCube games for that, digitally, like, give us Mario Sunshine, they wouldn't do it. And it's another example where, for the longest time, Nintendo's leaving money on the table because people don't stop wanting to play this game just because you don't want to sell it to them. And finally, they just gave everyone what they've been screaming for, is they finally allowed them a limited time opportunity, like it's the freaking Disney Vault or something, to buy this game before they're not going to sell it anymore. We love forced artificial scarcity.
I do have, speaking to the point earlier about the coding and stuff, it is not the exact same coding. They're taking out elements of the game and reselling it without some elements. You can't speedrun 64, you can't speedrun Mario Sunshine, because they took out a lot of the mechanics in the game, and it's a big selling point for some people, like myself. Like, I bought Super Mario 3D All-Stars, but I don't play it because I can't speedrun it. And I don't know how Super Mario Galaxy works, but I bet it's hard with the Joy-Con drift. I bet it's difficult with no pointy thing, because the part of the mechanic is that you have to point at the screen, and they probably took, I don't even know how it is, it probably sucks, but I mean, that's just speaking to the point earlier that they're not giving us the same exact thing. Not bad.
Oh my goodness. You're absolutely right, because I know on occasion they will do reissues of games. Another one I can remember for the GameCube is the original Metroid Prime. Now, I don't mean when they did that trilogy for Wii, but there is an incidental upgrade to Metroid Prime when they did the greatest hits version that took out a lot of the game-breaking bugs that people would use to sequence break and play the game. So if you wanted to speed run Metroid Prime, you got to make sure you don't have the re-release, or it just ain't gonna work right for what you want it to do.
Absolutely.
All right, Lucy, I'm particularly enamored with the selection you gave us. Tell me why Final Fantasy Tactics is your desert island game.
All right. Gun to my head, if you had to make me choose between a retro game and my game of all year, it was going to have to be this one, because Ivalice is probably my favorite fantasy world setting of all.
Period.
Ivalice.
Get with it.
That's the same setting in Final Fantasy 12, isn't it?
Yeah, Ivalice is 12. It's 12 Revenant Wings. It's Tactics, Tactics Advanced, Tactics Grimoire of the Rift, and Vagrant Story. All the same world. It's like this weird high fantasy, yet sometimes low fantasy setting, where it's just a lot of political backstabbing and intrigue, and everyone is morally gray. There is no real good guy, and it's almost endless because there's almost an infinite number of what's the word?
Party combinations.
Make with classes, skills, NPCs that you can recruit. And it's also one of the first, it's actually the first PlayStation 1 game I bought as a kid. And I remember I bought it at the Target in Surfside, Texas, where my family was going to the beach, and I would play it at night. And it's not summer break for me unless I hear the Final Fantasy Tactics save theme. And I played this game, I've beaten it 4 times, and I still am pretty sure I have not seen 100% of all the content, of all the little mini interactions between characters and cutscenes and like social interactions between like the little minor characters and stuff. So it's just a beautiful world that brings me back to my childhood, and I like to get lost in it.
I do remember playing that game when I was a kid as well. I'm going to cut back to I'm going to let this run for a little bit before it loops, but I do remember putting 100 hours into this, and I cringe to throw around the word Game of Thrones like, but it certainly is a story very steeped in socio and political intrigue within this little area. Like, it's sometimes people look at a Final Fantasy game and suggest that it is not perhaps the most adept of writing, but this is a very deep game. A lot of things going on there from a story perspective that just really makes it a top-notch tactics game, especially if it's your first tactics game. This, like, for me, it certainly was.
It's all because the writer-director Matsuno loved the novel Song of Ice and Fire, and it can clearly affected his playstyle. And also that same writing styles we used in Final Fantasy XIV today. That same, like, almost Dune-esque. It's not fantasy, but it's a political thriller set in a fantasy setting.
And the beautiful thing, of course, about that game as well is I know it's been re-released on certain platforms. I know it was available for the PlayStation Portable. I want to say it's also on mobile. I'm not 100% on that, but I feel like, again, Square Enix is one of these companies that is making an earnest attempt to make their back catalog accessible, because nowadays you can buy Final Fantasy VII on just about anything. The original Final Fantasies 1 through 10 are like on everything now. They're on Steam, they're on mobile, they're on Switch, they're in physical disc form, as Chalora's showing you here. Remember those things?
The remake for this was awful. Well, it's not a remake, it was a port or
remaster
whatever,
or something. I do remember the load times on the Switch. I remember being particularly atrocious for that.
Right now, this week, I think it actually releases this week. Square Enix is putting out the collection of Saga, the bastard stepchildren of the Saga series, Final Fantasy Legend 1, 2, and 3.
Hey, not too shabby.
And they did that with the last year, I think.
Ooh, I'll have to look out for that. I suppose this is the part where I guess I ought to take the reins on this for my Desert Island game. The people in my chat who happen to be in there, you already know where this is going. There's no other answer I could give but my favorite NES game of all time, Faxanadu. Alright, Pibby, what is it about Faxanadu that you like so much? Like, I'm gonna freaking interview myself over here. I love the expressions that Sixty's making right now that chat can't see, but that I can. Oh god, Lucy's holding up the cartridge too. Yes. It's like you knew I was gonna do this.
So,
no,
anyway, what do you like about Faxanadu? Yeah. Tell us.
I like that I can pronounce it two different ways, because you could go literally you could go Faxanadu, like Faxanadu, or you could pretend you're watching the Olivia Newton-John movie and go Faxanadu. There's literally, you can pronounce it two different ways. There's no real clear consensus on it. It's a two-dimensional action RPG in the vein of Zelda 2 for the NES. It released in about somewhere between 87 and 89. And I always come back to this game because not only am I a particular fan of the art style, because it doesn't employ a lot of the really bright, eye-gouging colors that one sometimes associates with old Nintendo games, but the NPCs in that game do a very good job of acting like a Twitch backseater. They actually tell you everything you're supposed to be doing in unambiguous language. And it was the first game that I ever played. It's like, I could beat this in a day. Like you can do that with video games? They let you do that? I played through it in a marathon session for like 6 hours, and it just broke me that you could do that. And for me, it's a sort of game, too, where you play it, you can start figuring out little incidental ways you can pick up time. Like, oh, here's the spot you could farm for an item. Here's the whole section you can skip if you brought the right thing with you. And it's why, for me, you told me, gun to my head, you're only playing one retro game for the rest of your life. This is going to be the one for me. And I think, I'm not 100%, I know that did get a Wii Virtual Console release. I don't know if it's on a Nintendo Switch Online. I would have to check. And if it's not, it's another example of what you brought up earlier, Lucy, is that the games that Nintendo has, we'll say, first-party publishing rights to, and that they're not making... They're basically drip-feeding us the games as opposed to other platforms. It's like, if we're going to pretend this is a Netflix of gaming, we're just going to give you everything instead of... Well, okay, now this month they're just giving us they just finally gave us Nightshade for the Nintendo, and it's like, really?
It'd be really weird if they didn't have it on there.
Pardon?
It would be really weird if they didn't have it on.
I know, so they got to do that stuff. All right.
I mean, they have a Captain N episode about Xanadu.
They did, yeah. There was the Xanadu episode of Captain N, right? Yeah.
Game Master.
All right, so I got one last section here about how indie games are keeping the spirit of the old-timey stuff alive. I'm probably going to pick up the pace here a little bit because I think we're getting the hook in about 10 minutes here. But for those of us, you know, sometimes it's not just about playing the games that are old. We got new games that try to make it look like old. We got all kinds of wonderful indie developers out there who are sating our thirst for the games of yore. I'm going to hit you up for here first, Lucy, because your game really... I'm buying this game when we're done here. Explain to me why World of Horror is a fun indie game.
Well, if I'm not a retro queen, I'm a horror queen. I am a horror fanatic, and especially a Lovecraftian horror, J horror, and this game just really did it all for me. It's one of the first games I ever streamed, and I pulled it up on a whim, and it's just easily customizable, so much randomization. It's hard. It is a damn hard game, and it kind of gets you too. Like, even if it's just these pixel graphics, it can have some nasty jump scares and some really horrific monsters, and the viscera and like the text descriptions of everything just really know how to sink into and make it much more visceral in your psyche as you play it. And it just touched me right.
It certainly does have that old-timey Macintosh look to it, and like I said, I mean, this is some horror. We're definitely gonna give somebody on the front page a nightmare. I love it.
You can also change those graphics. There's an options and settings where you can be these graphics, like the Mac Venture, like Deja Vu and Uninvited. You can change it to CGA. You can change it to the basic green Game Boy and Commodore's OG screen, which is various shades of green, and that's it. Damn. So yeah, you can customize how bad and how retro do you want your graphics.
I love it. All right, Betty, hit me up. Why is this Dark game so awesome?
So yeah, I chose a game called Dark, D-A-R-Q. It is I'm actually wearing a look that I wore during the time I was streaming that was inspired by the main character. But it's just a really creepy, like, side scroller. It's a platformer. But what I really loved about it is it sort of reminded me of Hercules, the old Hercules game, because there are parts of the game where you don't just move left to right. It also shifts you so that you can move forward and back in the depth of the game. Which is similar. If you remember the Hercules games, you can sort of like run into the scene a little bit and then continue to move to the side. But I just really enjoy it. It's puzzle based. It doesn't feel like a puzzle game. It's more immersive. The atmosphere is really incredible. It's got great scares in it, and the main this bald-headed main character inspired a whole month of looks for me. So I think I'll take that as well.
Truly, for me, the best kind of puzzle game is one where it doesn't feel like one, where it just kind of flows in naturally. And
I hate puzzle games because I'm not that smart.
Exactly. Well, there you go. If it's a puzzle game and you loathe the genre and it's good for you, then hey, can't really argue with that.
So happy.
All right, Shalora, you gave me a game called Lost Ember. Sell me on why this indie game does it for you.
So I found Lost Ember originally on Kickstarter, like I think 2 years ago. And the graphics looked really interesting, just a little different than you would normally see. And you play this kind of fox character. And in this world, I guess, there's sort of like Valhalla or, heaven concept. And if you do something wrong, you go back to Earth, but like as something else, kind of has like this reincarnation feel. It has really good animation design that I really like. It kind of has this like open worlds at certain parts that you can just run around and explore and look at all the animals and creatures. And so you have this soul and you can inhabit other animals that you find. Any animal you find, you can inhabit. Hummingbirds, all sorts of whatever. And like if you were a Kickstarter, you can do fantasy creatures like phoenixes and other things like that. And they each have their own kind of like movement sets and like patterns, which is really cool. And the story itself also has LGBTQIA+ themes, which I found incredible as well. And it was just so seamless. It wasn't like, hey, look, gay people. It was just kind of like, this is in the background of the story, and it's completely natural, And so for that, The visuals were incredible in storytelling, not only, the storytelling was incredible not only visually but through its narration as well. So I would say it's a really interesting game, really cool, not just for the fun, cute animals, but for the story as well.
The being able to carry around as any animal does remind me of Space Station Silicon Valley for the N64, and really any game that gives you that kind of ability to swap out characters is always going to be a plus in my book. All right, Spolz. All right, I'm going to hit you up with mine here real quick. My game, if you told me to pick an indie game, is the old Papers, Please. I don't know if you've heard of this cute little game before. You work an immigration checkpoint at a thinly veiled Eastern European country in the 80s, and not only is there a lot of, okay, does this match the paperwork? Is this a forged document? Have they got everything they need? Are they a wanted suspect? There's also a political intrigue subplot going on, and you can decide whether to support revolutionary action or if you're going to abide by the state. And there's so many different endings that can happen based on how far you go in on either path. And of course, it continues to have this really fantastic old-timey PC presentation there as well. And I really do recommend this game for anyone who... You wouldn't think a document game would be this deep, but these are the same folks, I think, that gave you the... I want to say it's the same dev who did the Curse of the Obra Dinn. And if not, then they were definitely sharing notes with each other. They definitely were. It's... Again, if I'm only playing one indie game for the rest of my life, that's the one. All right, I'm going to wind up back here because we got about 4 minutes before we got to send this thing off to somewhere else. Does anyone have any parting things we want to discuss while we have this moment here? Anything you've been waiting to get out here?
I want
Can
to
somebody
remake.
Trans tag when?
Trans tag.
Yes,
tag.
definitely. Trans tag. Regardless of whatever we discuss here, trans tag. Come on, Twitch. You can do it.
Right.
You have the
I'm getting
technology.
angry. Come on now.
It's a couple of keystrokes. It's easy enough to do.
It's 5 letters. It's TRNS, trans. Just add the tag. Come on now.
You can do it.
If you want to
can
get
do
really
it.
fancy, you can even put in the little description before you hit save. But anyway.
Tip for
Really quick-
partner.
It's
Can-
a common pretext, Brenda.
Can someone
Exactly.
also blow into a cartridge for me, please?
Oh.
Put your lips together and blow.
I think I got this
I can put
copy
on
of
some
Outrun
lip
here.
gloss, baby.
Welcome to Drag Queen ASMR.
Thank you.
But yes, we're very much enamored with the retro games, and we're not quite done here yet. But I hope that throughout this discussion we've had here today, that we have sold you on why games don't have to be brand new to be fantastic. How we can still make an earnest attempt to both honor the gaming's past while bringing new perspectives to it. Like, for example, you were talking about how race issues were not necessarily handled well back then, and we can come to that with a new perspective and say, hey, yeah, we did this back then. That's not cool. Let's never do that again.
If you're gonna update a retro game, just make it not racist and not homophobic, xenophobic, or transphobic.
That's
Period.
that. And that is definitely one of them period things. All right. Let's start to wrap things up over here because I think we got about a couple of minutes left here. All right, 60. Go ahead and wave yourself out here. Tell me where we can find you and what you're going to do.
Twitch.tv/60bb. I'm a Betty Black. I am, this week has inspired me to restart my podcast. Look out for that. Whatever music's happening, drag is happening. If you're going to update an old dungeon crawler game, don't make it shitty. I really almost bought, what was that game, Chalora? I don't know what it was either. But I almost bought it. Leave it
All
alone.
All right, Shalora, tell the chat about you. Wave yourself out here.
I'm Chalora. You can find me on twitch.tv/Chalora, on Twitter at Chalora with a 0 instead of an O, or on Instagram at ChaloraFlora. PiB helped me a lot in my next series that I'm going to be doing, which is Chibi Robo, so I hope that you guys enjoy.
All right, Nemi, send everyone home happy. Tell them about you.
I am Nemesis Network, but on all social media handles, you can find me at Nemesis LaCroix. Besides Twitch, twitch.tv/Nemesis Network. I stream 4 times a week in full drag every stream. I do speedrun Sundays of Super Mario Sunshine, and hashtag Nem for partner, hashtag PIB for partner.
That's the tea.
I love it. Lucy, your turn.
You can find me at Shady Gaming, all one word, gaming with a Y, because we are derivative and unoriginal on both Twitch and YouTube. YouTube is a whole bunch of different games and different queens to be guests with. IH8 Lucy on Twitter and Instagram. I stream 4 times a week. I stream every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at 8 p.m. Central Time, except for the third Saturday of a month. That's when I have my Leatherman group when it's not a quarantine. And usually my Tuesday nights are off-duty drag queen because of my day job. But hey, I'm a teacher and I'm on Christmas break, so all drag all the time now.
Exactly. And I have been your moderator today, QueenPiB. I hope I've done a good job for you today. You can find me at twitch.tv/QueenPiB on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sundays. Rest of my socials information's there. Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in and hanging out with us. And we hope you have a good rest of the convention. Stay tuned to see how I do the rest of this outfit. Goodbye, everyone. Take her easy.
Bye. Trends tag when.